The sand moved like water across the crystal dunes of Kepler 442c. Hanna watched it flow from her position on top of the mining transport. Her dark eyes followed each grain as the desert wind carried it higher into the orange sky. She had learned to read the sand like others read books. Every movement told her something about wind speed and direction. The convoy of 6 heavy trucks crawled across the wasteland. Each vehicle carried precious minerals from the deep mines back to New Sol Colony. Hanna rode on the lead truck with her modified plasma rifle across her knees. The weapon looked ancient compared to alien technology, but it had never failed her. Park Gino sat in the driver's seat below her. His voice crackled through her earpiece. "Hanna, the scanner shows movement 2 clicks northeast. Could be another crystal storm forming." Hanna raised her scope and looked toward the distant rocks. The heat made the air shimmer like broken glass. She could see something moving between the red stone formations. It was too big to be wind and too fast to be natural crystal growth. Her finger moved to the trigger guard. "That's not a storm," she said quietly into her microphone. "Stop the convoy." The 6 trucks came to a halt in a cloud of orange dust. The other security guards jumped down from their vehicles. Most of them were young colonists who had never seen real combat. They carried standard energy weapons and looked nervous in the growing heat. Kim Mira climbed up beside Hanna on the truck roof. The 22-year-old engineer had bright eyes full of curiosity. She always wanted to watch Hanna work. "What do you see out there?" "Crystal hunters," Hanna replied. She adjusted her scope for the planet's strange gravity, 3 of them moving fast through the canyon. "They're trying to circle around us." The crystal hunters were native predators the size of earth bears. Their bodies looked like living gemstones that could cut through metal. They were fast and smart and very hungry. Most colonists had never seen one and lived to tell about it. Choi Doyen walked over from the mining equipment truck. The 50-year-old foreman had arms like steel cables from years of hard work. His face was burned dark by the desert sun. "How many rounds you got, sniper girl?" Hanna smiled at the old nickname. "Enough!" She lay flat on the truck roof and set up her rifle. The weapon had been modified for the planet's thin atmosphere and strange magnetic field. Regular energy weapons lost power at long range here, but kinetic. Bullets flew true if you knew how to read the wind. Through her scope, she could see the first crystal hunter moving between rocks 1,500 meters away. Its body caught the sunlight like a prism and threw rainbow colors across the canyon walls. Beautiful and deadly at the same time. "First target acquired," she whispered. The desert wind picked up strength. Sand began to swirl around the convoy in small tornadoes. The other guards raised their weapons, but they could not see the targets at this distance. Only Hanna had the skill and equipment for such a long shot. She felt the wind against her face and calculated its effect on the bullet path. The thin air would make the round fly faster but drop less. The planet's gravity was slightly weaker than Earth normal. She adjusted her aim point 3 degrees left and 1 degree high. "Take the shot," Park Gino called from below. "That sandstorm is getting closer." Hanna controlled her breathing. In and out slowly like her old instructor had taught her back on Earth. Her heart rate dropped to 60 beats per minute. The rifle became part of her body. She could feel the crystal hunter's movement through the scope. The trigger broke clean and smooth. The kinetic round left the barrel at 3,000 feet per second. It flew through the swirling sand like an arrow of death. 2 seconds later, the crystal hunter exploded in a shower of gem fragments. "One down," Kim Mira cheered. "Did you see that shot?" But Hanna was already tracking the second target. This one had learned from its packmate's death. It moved in quick bursts between cover. Smart predator. She would have to predict where it would appear next. The wind grew stronger. Sand began to sting her face, but she did not move from her position. Through the scope, she watched the crystal formation where the second hunter was hiding. She knew it would have to break cover soon to attack the convoy. There. A flash of crystal light between 2 rocks. The hunter was moving to flank them from the south. Hanna swung her rifle and fired without conscious thought. Pure instinct guided the bullet through the storm. Another explosion of crystal shards marked her second kill. The third hunter was the smart one. It stayed hidden and waited for the sandstorm to reach the convoy. In the swirling dust, it would have perfect cover for an attack. The guards would not see it coming until too late. "Everyone stay calm," Hanna called to the security team. "Third contact still active. Moving to higher ground." She climbed to the top of the tallest mining truck. The extra height gave her a better view over the rocks. Kim Mira followed her up with a portable scanner. The young engineer's face was full of excitement and fear. Scanner shows thermal signature moving fast toward the convoy, Mira reported. Range 800 meters and closing. The sandstorm hit them like a wall of orange fury. Visibility dropped to less than 50 meters. The other guards fired blind into the swirling dust. Their energy bolts lit up the storm like lightning but hit nothing important. Hana closed her eyes and listened. Over the wind she could hear the crystal hunter's footsteps on rock. It was moving in a straight line toward the convoy's weakest vehicle. The supply truck with no armor and no weapons. She opened her eyes and raised her rifle. Through the storm she could barely see the outline of rocks and sand. No clear target, no clean shot. Just instinct and experience telling her where the hunter would appear. The crystal hunter burst from the storm at full speed. Its gem body blazed with reflected light from the energy weapon fire. Razor claws reached for the supply truck's driver. In one more second it would tear through metal and flesh. Hana fired. The bullet took the crystal hunter's center mass and shattered its core. The creature fell 10 meters from the truck in a cascade of broken gems. The storm began to clear as if the predator's death had calmed the desert itself. Impossible shot, Choi Doyen said as he walked over to examine the dead hunter. Through a sandstorm at that range. No human should be able to make that shot. Park Gino climbed up to join them on the truck roof. His face showed relief and pride. Good thing Hana is not like other humans. Kim Mira was already collecting crystal fragments for analysis. Wait until the Thakari traders hear about this. They think only energy weapons can be precise at long range. Hana cleaned her rifle and checked the ammunition counter. Still plenty of rounds left. She looked out at the endless desert and wondered what other challenges waited in the orange sand. The crystal hunters were just the beginning. In the distance she could see the silver towers of New Sol Colony rising from the heat waves. Home for now. But something in the wind told her that bigger tests were coming. Tests that would require more than good shooting to survive. The convoy started moving again across the crystal dunes. Behind them lay 3 dead predators. Ahead waited the unknown dangers of an alien world. And on the lead truck sat a human sniper who never missed her mark. The desert wind carried her reputation across the wasteland to ears that would soon demand proof of human skill. The Thakari ship landed at New Sol Colony 3 days after the Crystal Hunter attack. It came down from the orange sky like a silver arrow and settled on the landing pad with barely a whisper. Hana watched from the security tower as tall alien figures emerged from the gleaming vessel. Park Gino joined her at the observation window. His face showed worry lines that had not been there before. The trade delegation is here early. Something must be important. The Thakari stood 7 feet tall with bronze-colored skin that seemed to glow in the desert sunlight. They wore flowing robes of deep blue fabric that moved like water in the wind. Each carried a curved energy weapon at their side. Even from a distance, Hana could see they moved like trained warriors. They look impressive, Kim Mira said as she climbed the tower stairs. The young engineer carried a tablet full of technical readouts. Their ship barely registered on our sensors. Advanced stealth technology. 3 Thakari approached the colony's main building. The leader wore golden bands around his arms that marked him as a diplomat. The other 2 were younger with the quick movements of soldiers. All 3 had eyes like purple gemstones that seemed to see everything. Hana checked her rifle one more time and headed for the main hall. As head of colony security, she needed to be present for all diplomatic meetings. Her boots echoed on the metal stairs as she made her way down from the tower. The main hall buzzed with nervous energy. Colonists lined the walls to get their first look at alien visitors. Most had never seen a Thakari in person. The stories said they were proud warriors who valued strength above all else. Park Gino stood at the center table with documents spread before him. Trade agreements and mining contracts covered the surface in neat piles. Everything the colony needed to survive depended on good relations with alien partners. The Thakari entered the hall with flowing grace. The diplomat stepped forward and bowed slightly. I am Morden of the Silver Fleet. These are my companions Vektar and Zalneth. We come to discuss expanded trade between our peoples. Welcome to New Sol Colony, Park Gino replied with his own bow. I am Administrator Park and this is our head of security, Lee Hana. We are honored by your visit. Vektar's purple eyes fixed on Hana with clear interest. He was younger than the diplomat but carried himself like a veteran fighter. The energy weapon at his side hummed with barely contained power. So this is the human who claims to be a marksman. Claims nothing, Choi Doyen spoke up from the crowd. The mining foreman never backed down from anyone. She proved it 3 days ago when she saved our convoy. Zalneth laughed with a sound like breaking glass. He was the youngest of the three with eager eyes and quick movements. Primitive kinetic weapons against simple beasts. We have heard these stories before. The hall fell silent. Every colonist understood the insult. Hana felt the weight of their expectations but kept her face calm. She had learned long ago that words meant less than actions. The crystal hunters are not simple beasts, she said quietly. They are fast and smart and very dangerous. The shots required precision at extreme range in difficult conditions. Vektar moved closer with predatory smoothness. His hand rested on his energy weapon in a casual display of readiness. Precision is what separates warriors from farmers. The Thakari have perfected the art of accurate shooting across 1,000 worlds. I have no doubt of Thakari skill, Hana replied. Every species has its strengths. Indeed they do, Morden said with diplomatic smoothness. He could sense the growing tension in the room. Perhaps we might discuss trade agreements before other matters. But Zalneth was not finished. His young warrior's pride had been stirred by the stories of human marksmanship. The mining reports speak of impossible shots, bullets guided through sandstorms by pure luck. Kim Mira stepped forward with fire in her eyes. Luck had nothing to do with it. Hana calculated wind speed, gravity drop, and atmospheric density in seconds. Then she made 3 perfect shots at ranges your people would consider impossible. Vektar's purple eyes glowed brighter. Impossible is a strong word, young human. The Thakari do not recognize impossible when it comes to precision shooting. The challenge hung in the air like smoke from a weapon discharge. Every person in the hall could feel it building towards something that could not be stopped. Hana looked at Park Gino and saw the worry in his friend's eyes. Perhaps, she said carefully, we might discuss this matter privately after the trade negotiations. No need for privacy, Vektar declared. If human claims are true, then they can be proven. I challenge your colony's best marksman to a contest of skill. Park Gino raised his hands for calm. Honored guests, surely such matters can wait. We have important business to conduct. Morden nodded agreement, but his younger companions had already committed themselves. Thakari Honor demanded that challenges be answered. My apologies, Administrator Park. When warriors meet, there must sometimes be tests of skill. Choi Doyen pushed through the crowd to stand beside Hana. His weathered face showed grim determination. What kind of contest are we talking about? Zalneth smiled with sharp teeth. 3 days of shooting trials in your desert. Static targets, moving targets, and combat simulation. Traditional Thakari weapons against human primitive tools. Primitive tools that never miss, Kim Mira said with quiet confidence. Vektar drew his energy weapon in one smooth motion. The curved blade of pure light extended from the handle with a sound like singing crystal. Energy flows where will directs it. This is the way of true warriors. Hana looked at the beautiful weapon and felt no intimidation. She had faced death many times with only her rifle and skill. I accept your challenge, Vektar of the Silver Fleet. The hall erupted in surprised voices. Some colonists cheered while others worried about diplomatic consequences. Park Gino closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. Kim Mira grinned like she had just been given the best gift possible. Morden raised his hand for silence. The challenge is accepted. 3 days from now we begin the trials. May both warriors bring honor to their peoples. Vektar bowed with warrior respect. The human shows courage. I look forward to demonstrating Thakari superiority in all matters of precision. And I look forward to showing you what humans can accomplish with determination and practice, Hana replied. As the crowd began to disperse, Zalneth approached Kim Mira with curious eyes. Tell me, young engineer, what modifications has your marksman made to her primitive weapon? Kim Mira's eyes sparkled with technical enthusiasm. Atmospheric compensators, gravity adjustment systems, and enhanced targeting algorithms. Plus a few improvements she developed herself. Interesting, the young Thakari said. Perhaps human technology is not as primitive as we assumed. Hana walked to the window and looked out at the desert where the contest would take place. 3 days to prepare for the most important shooting match of her life. The colony's reputation and trade status depended on her skill. Park Gino joined her at the window. Are you sure about this? The diplomatic consequences could be severe if things go wrong. Things won't go wrong, Hana said with quiet confidence. I never miss my mark. But what if their technology is superior to human skill? Hana smiled as she watched the wind patterns in the distant sand dunes. Then I'll have to be better than superior. I'll have to be perfect. Outside the window, the desert waited like a proving ground for warriors. In 3 days, it would test human determination against alien pride. Only one would emerge as the true master of precision shooting. The challenge had been accepted. Now came the hardest part, living up to her reputation when everything depended on it. The first day of competition dawned clear and hot over the crystal desert. Hana stood at the firing line with her modified rifle while Vektar prepared his energy weapon 50 meters away. Between them stretched a shooting range that would test the limits of both technologies. Kim Mira finished setting up the targeting computers while colonists and Thakari gathered on the observation platform. The young engineer had worked all night installing new sensors and measurement devices. Every shot would be recorded and analyzed down to the smallest detail. First challenge is static precision shooting, Morden announced to the crowd. Targets at increasing range and difficulty. Both competitors will attempt the same shots using their preferred weapons. Park Gino handed Hana a bottle of water and checked her equipment one final time. His worried expression had not changed since accepting the challenge 3 days ago. Remember the wind patterns shift after noon? The heat will create updrafts near the rock formations. I know, Hana said calmly. She had spent the morning studying the desert conditions through her scope. Every grain of sand told her something about air movement and thermal currents. The important thing is staying focused on each individual shot. The first targets appeared at 500 meters. Simple metal discs the size of dinner plates mounted on posts. Easy shots for both competitors under normal circumstances. But the desert heat was already building and the wind had started its daily dance across the dunes. Vektar raised his energy weapon with fluid grace. The curved handle fit his large hands perfectly, and the targeting system glowed with soft blue light. He aimed for 3 seconds, then fired. A beam of pure energy lanced across the desert and struck the center of his target. Perfect hit, Zalneth called out with obvious pride. Center mass placement with full power delivery. Hana settled into her shooting position and controlled her breathing. Through the scope, she could see heat waves rising from the sand between her and the target. The kinetic round would have to travel through unstable air that could throw off its trajectory. She adjusted for wind drift and fired. The bullet flew true and punched through the metal disc with a satisfying clang. A perfect center hit that matched the Thakari shot exactly. Both competitors advanced to the next stage, Kim Mira announced. Her voice carried excitement mixed with relief. Range now 800 meters. The second set of targets was smaller and mounted on swaying posts that moved with the wind. Hitting them required timing as well as accuracy. The crowd grew quiet as both warriors prepared for more difficult shots. Vektar fired first again. His energy beam tracked the moving target and struck it cleanly. The advanced targeting computer in his weapon calculated movement and delivered the shot at exactly the right moment. Hana watched the target sway for several seconds before firing. She had to predict where it would be when her bullet arrived rather than rely on computer assistance. Years of combat experience guided her aim as she squeezed the trigger. The bullet caught the target at the peak of its swing and sent it spinning off the post. Another perfect hit that drew cheers from the colonist spectators. Impressive, Vektar said as they moved to the 1,000-meter line. Your primitive weapon shows surprising accuracy. Practice makes up for a lot of technological disadvantages, Hana replied. She was beginning to understand how the Thakari energy weapons worked. They were incredibly advanced but relied heavily on computer assistance. The third challenge pushed both competitors to their limits. Targets appeared behind partial cover that blocked most of the impact area. Only small sections remained visible, and the range made precise placement extremely difficult. Hana studied the target through her scope and saw the challenge clearly. The opening was barely larger than her bullet and positioned behind 3 layers of rock formations. She would need to thread the shot through a maze of obstacles. Vektar fired his energy beam, but the rocks absorbed most of its power. Only a weak pulse reached the target area and failed to register a hit. He frowned and adjusted his weapon settings for maximum penetration. His second shot burned through the first rock barrier, but lost coherence before reaching the target. The energy beam spread too wide to fit through the narrow opening. Frustration showed on his bronze features as he prepared for a third attempt. Hana calculated the bullet path carefully. Kinetic rounds could ricochet off hard surfaces if the angle was correct. Instead of trying to shoot straight through the obstacles, she aimed for a crystal formation that would redirect her bullet toward the target. The shot rang out across the desert. Her bullet struck the crystal at precisely the right angle and bounced toward the hidden target. The ricochet carried enough energy to trigger the impact sensor and register a perfect hit. Impossible, Zelneth said in amazement. She used the environment itself as part of her weapon system. Vektar stared at the target with new respect in his purple eyes. I have never seen such creative marksmanship. How did you calculate that ricochet angle? Experience with crystal formations and understanding of bullet ballistics, Hana explained. Sometimes the indirect path is better than the direct one. The competition continued through the morning with increasingly difficult challenges. Targets appeared at maximum range behind swirling sand clouds. Others were positioned to test accuracy under extreme heat distortion. Each shot pushed both competitors closer to their limits. Hana found herself remembering her military training on Earth. The instructor's voice echoed in her memory during a brief rest between targets. Shooting is not about the weapon. It is about understanding your environment and working with it instead of against it. She had learned that lesson during the worst day of her military career. Her squad had been pinned down by enemy fire with no hope of rescue. Only her rifle skills had kept them alive long enough for evacuation. But in the end, she had been the only survivor. The memory drove her to shoot even better. Each target represented another life saved and another mission completed. Failure was not an option when others depended on her skills. Vektar proved to be an exceptional marksman with his energy weapon. His shots were mathematically perfect and delivered with technological precision that human hands could barely match. The targeting computer never missed its calculations. But as the day progressed, Hana began to notice something important. The Thakari warrior relied completely on his weapon's computer systems. When environmental conditions exceeded the programming parameters, his accuracy suffered. The final challenge of day one pushed both competitors beyond normal limits. The target was a crystal formation 1,500 meters away that could only be damaged by hitting a specific weak point. Miss the exact spot and the shot would have no effect. Vektar fired 3 times without success. His energy beam struck the crystal but failed to find the vulnerable area. The targeting computer could not identify the correct impact point from such extreme range. Hana studied the formation through her scope and saw what others missed. Years of fighting crystal hunters had taught her how their bodies were constructed. The weak point was hidden, but she knew where to look. Her shot cracked across the desert like thunder. The bullet found its mark, and the entire crystal formation shattered in a cascade of brilliant fragments. The crowd erupted in cheers as rainbow-colored shards fell like rain. Day one goes to the human competitor, Mordine announced. Tomorrow we test moving target engagement. As the spectators dispersed, Vektar approached Hana with warrior respect. You shoot like the desert itself guides your bullets. There is much I could learn from human methods. And I could learn from Thakari technology, Hana replied. Perhaps we are both better when we share knowledge instead of competing. But even as she spoke those words, Hana knew the real test was yet to come. Day one had been about pure accuracy. Tomorrow would bring moving targets in complex scenarios that tested more than just shooting skills. The desert wind carried new challenges toward them on streams of crystal sand. The second day brought new challenges and hidden dangers. Hana woke before dawn to find Kim Mira already working on equipment modifications in the armory. The young engineer had dark circles under her eyes, but her hands moved with steady precision as she adjusted targeting systems. Could not sleep either, Kim Mira said without looking up from her work. I keep thinking about today's moving target trials. Vektar's energy weapon has tracking capabilities we cannot match. Hana checked her rifle and ammunition supply. The kinetic rounds looked simple compared to Thakari energy technology, but they had never failed her when accuracy mattered most. Sometimes simple tools work better than complex ones. Outside the window, the desert was waking up. Crystal formations caught the first light and threw rainbow patterns across the sand. But something felt wrong about the morning. The usual desert sounds were missing and the air tasted different. Park Gino entered the armory with a concerned expression. Long-range sensors are picking up unusual activity in the northern sectors. Could be another crystal hunter migration, but the patterns are strange. What kind of patterns? Hana asked as she cleaned her rifle scope. Too organized for animals. Too scattered for natural phenomena. Like something is searching the desert in a grid pattern. Kim Mira looked up from her equipment with worry in her eyes. Searching for what? Before anyone could answer, Choi Doyen burst through the door. The mining foreman's face was grim and his clothes were covered in orange dust. We have problems. Big problems. The automated mining stations in Sector 7 have gone silent. Equipment failure, Park Gino asked hopefully. All 6 stations at the same time. Not likely. Choi Doyen pulled up a map on the wall display. Look at this pattern. Something is moving through our territory in a systematic sweep. Hana studied the map and felt ice form in her stomach despite the morning heat. The pattern was familiar from her military training. Search and destroy formations used by raiders who wanted to strip a colony clean before anyone could respond. Kethmori, she said quietly. The word fell into the room like a stone into still water. Everyone knew the stories about the desert pirates who appeared without warning to loot entire settlements. They were fast and ruthless and very hard to stop. We need to cancel the competition, Park Gino said immediately. Alert all defensive systems and prepare for possible attack. No, Morden's voice came from the doorway. The Thakari diplomat entered with Vektar and Zalneth behind him. Canceling the trials would show weakness. The Kethmori respect only strength. Vektar nodded agreement. If raiders are coming, then we must appear confident and ready. Cowering behind walls will only encourage them to attack. But we should prepare defenses, Zalneth added. His young warrior's instincts were already focused on the threat. The competition can continue while we make ready for battle. Kim Mira stood up from her equipment with determination in her eyes. The moving target trials might be good practice if we have to fight raiders soon. 20 minutes later, both competitors stood at the starting line for Day 2 challenges. The course stretched across 2 kilometers of desert terrain with targets that moved in unpredictable patterns. Aerial drones buzzed overhead while ground vehicles raced between rock formations. First challenge is speed and accuracy combined, Morden announced to the smaller crowd. Many colonists had returned to defensive duties after hearing about the possible threat. Hit as many moving targets as possible in 10 minutes. Vektar raised his energy weapon and activated the tracking systems. Targeting data flowed across his weapon's display in streams of blue light. The computer could lock onto multiple targets and predict their movement patterns with mathematical precision. His first shot took down an aerial drone at 800 meters. The energy beam tracked the target's flight path and delivered perfect hit. 3 more drones fell in rapid succession as his weapon's computer calculated intercept courses. Hana took a different approach. Instead of trying to track individual targets, she watched the overall movement patterns. Years of hunting crystal hunters had taught her to see the forest instead of individual trees. She fired at empty air and watched her bullet intersect with a ground vehicle 2 seconds later. The target never saw the shot coming. Her next round caught an aerial drone as it turned toward a new heading. Perfect timing based on predicting behavior rather than tracking movement. Incredible, Zalneth said as he watched both competitors work. The human shoots where targets will be instead of where they are. The competition continued across the desert with increasingly difficult scenarios. Targets appeared behind cover and moved in complex patterns designed to confuse tracking systems. Some changed direction randomly while others followed preset courses. Vektar's energy weapon performed flawlessly when targets moved predictably. The computer could calculate any course and deliver precise shots at exactly the right moment. But when targets behaved erratically, his accuracy dropped significantly. Hana found her rhythm in the chaos. Random movement was still movement, and movement followed patterns even when it seemed completely wild. She began to anticipate target behavior based on environmental factors and tactical considerations. A ground vehicle racing between rocks had to slow down for turns. An aerial drone avoiding obstacles would climb to gain clearance. Everything followed the laws of physics and the logic of survival. She just had to see the connections. By midday, both competitors were tied in total hits, but their methods could not have been more different. Vektar relied on technological superiority, while Hana used environmental awareness and intuitive understanding. Time for the advanced trials, Morden called out. Targets will now move in combat patterns with evasive maneuvers. The new targets behaved like real enemies. They used cover effectively and changed direction without warning. Some moved in coordinated groups while others acted independently. The challenge was more like actual combat than target practice. Hana felt her military training take over. These were not targets anymore, but threats that needed to be neutralized quickly and efficiently. Her mind shifted into combat mode and everything became crystal clear. She began making shots that defied explanation. Bullets curved around obstacles and found targets that should have been impossible to hit. Not through luck or technology, but through deep understanding of ballistics and environmental physics. She is using the desert itself as a weapon, Vectar said with growing amazement. The bullet paths are calculated to use wind currents and thermal updrafts. Kim Mira checked her instruments and confirmed the impossible. Atmospheric density variations are creating microchannels of different air pressure. She is threading bullets through gaps that last only milliseconds. As the afternoon wore on, Hana pulled ahead in the scoring. Her shots became more creative and audacious with each target. She was no longer competing against Vectar, but pushing the absolute limits of what kinetic weapons could accomplish. The final challenge appeared just as the desert wind began to pick up strength. A formation of 6 targets moving in perfect coordination like a military unit. They used mutual cover and moved with tactical precision that made individual targeting nearly impossible. Vectar fired multiple energy beams, but the targets scattered and regrouped, faster than his weapon could track. The computer system became confused by the complex movement patterns and began missing shots. Hana watched the formation for 30 seconds before firing her first shot. The bullet took down the lead target and caused the others to break formation exactly as she had predicted. Her next 5 shots followed in rapid succession as the targets moved into predetermined positions. All 6 targets fell in less than 10 seconds. The crowd stood in stunned silence as the last target crashed to the desert sand. Even the Thakari warriors looked impressed by the display of tactical shooting. Day 2 belongs to the human, Morden announced. Tomorrow brings the final trial of combat simulation. As the spectators dispersed, Kim Mira ran to Hana with excitement and worry competing on her face. That was amazing, but the sensor readings are getting worse. Whatever is out there in the desert is getting closer. Hana looked toward the northern horizon where heat waves danced above the crystal formations. Somewhere beyond those rocks an enemy was approaching. Tomorrow's combat simulation might become very real very quickly. Let them come, she said quietly. The desert will not protect them from bullets any better than it protects targets. But deep in her heart she knew the final test would require more than exceptional shooting. It would take everything she had learned about survival and sacrifice to keep the colony safe. The moving shadows in the desert were getting closer with each passing hour. The third day dawned with ominous clouds gathering on the horizon. A massive sandstorm was building in the deep desert and moving toward the colony like a wall of orange fury. Hana watched it approach from the security tower while checking her equipment one final time. Kim Mira climbed the stairs with her tablet showing urgent readings. The storm will hit us in 3 hours. Wind speeds up to 200 kilometers per hour with 0 visibility. Perfect cover for raiders. Perfect cover for the final competition too, Hana said grimly. Combat simulation in a real sandstorm will test more than shooting skills. Below them, the colony buzzed with defensive preparations. Choi Doyen directed teams installing additional armor plating on critical buildings. Park Gino coordinated with Morden to position Thakari warriors at key defensive points. Everyone knew the raiders would come with the storm. Vectar appeared in the tower doorway carrying his energy weapon and additional power cells. His purple eyes showed the focused intensity of a warrior preparing for battle. The final trial begins in 1 hour. Are you ready for combat simulation, human marksman? Ready as anyone can be for fighting in a sandstorm, Hana replied. She slung her rifle across her shoulder and headed for the stairs. Though I suspect this simulation might become very real very quickly. The competition area had been expanded to cover 5 square kilometers of desert terrain. Hidden throughout the course were targets designed to simulate enemy combatants in various tactical situations. Some would pop up randomly while others required careful searching to locate. Zalneth checked the scoring equipment one final time before the storm arrived. Rules are simple. Navigate the course and eliminate as many hostile targets as possible. Points awarded for accuracy, speed, and tactical awareness. How do we avoid shooting each other in the storm? Vectar asked with practical concern. You start from opposite ends of the course, Morden explained. Communication systems will track your positions, but visual contact will be impossible once the storm hits. Hana adjusted her rifle scope and tested the modified atmospheric sensors Kim Mira had installed. The new equipment could detect heat signatures and movement even through swirling sand. Not as good as clear visibility, but better than shooting blind. The first hour of competition took place in clear conditions with only light wind. Both competitors moved through the course methodically, engaging targets that appeared from concealed positions. Their different approaches quickly became apparent. Vector advanced in straight lines using his energy weapon's sensors to detect targets at maximum range. His shots were precise and powerful, destroying targets completely with concentrated energy beams, fast and efficient but predictable in movement patterns. Hana moved like a ghost through the rocks and crystal formations. She used natural cover extensively and approached targets from unexpected angles. Her shots were quieter and left targets intact, making it harder for enemies to locate her position. By the time the sandstorm reached the course, both competitors had eliminated dozens of simulated enemies. The scoring was close, but Hana held a slight advantage through superior tactical movement and target selection. Then the storm hit like the hammer of an angry god. Visibility dropped to 0 within minutes. The world became a howling chaos of sand and wind that stripped exposed skin and made breathing difficult. Both competitors activated their communication systems and continued the hunt by sensors and instinct alone. Storm has reached full intensity. Kim Mira's voice crackled through the radio interference. All readings are compromised, but both competitors are still active on the course. Hana moved carefully through the blinding sand using her rifle scope's thermal imaging to navigate. The storm created perfect conditions for close-range ambush tactics, but made long-range shooting nearly impossible. She would have to adapt her methods completely. A target popped up 30 meters to her left. She could barely see its outline through the swirling sand, but her scope's heat sensors painted it clearly. One shot took it down before it could simulate return fire. Target eliminated Sector 7, her radio announced automatically. 2 more targets appeared in rapid succession, forcing her to move quickly between firing positions. The storm was actually helping her tactical approach by providing concealment. For movement between shots, Vector's position updates came through the radio system as he advanced through his section of the course. His energy weapon's power signature was easy to track even through the interference. Bright flashes marked each shot as he engaged targets with overwhelming firepower. Multiple targets eliminated Sector 12, his weapon system reported. 30 minutes into the storm phase, both competitors were deep in the course and approaching the central area where their paths would potentially cross. The tactical situation was becoming more complex with each passing minute. Then Kim Mira's voice cut through the radio static with urgent warning. Real contacts approaching from the north. Repeat, we have actual enemy movement outside the competition area. Hana froze behind a crystal formation and switched her scope to maximum magnification. Through the storm she could see dark shapes moving with purpose toward the colony perimeter. Not targets or training equipment, but real raiders using the storm as cover. Grixtal leads the advanced scouts, came a new voice on an intercepted Kethmori frequency. The storm provides perfect concealment for the main assault. The competition had just become deadly serious. Real enemies were approaching while both competitors were scattered across the desert with simulated targets. The line between training and combat had disappeared completely. Vector, do you copy? Hana called over the radio. We have real hostiles approaching colony perimeter. Confirmed, his voice replied immediately. I count at least 6 contacts moving in coordinated formation. This is no longer simulation. Park Gino's voice cut into the frequency from the colony command center. All units be advised, Kethmori raiders are using the storm to mask their approach. Competition is suspended. All competitors return to defensive positions immediately. But Hana was already moving toward the real threat instead of back to safety. Through her scope, she could see raiders in advanced armor carrying energy weapons designed for close combat. They moved with the confidence of predators who had done this many times before. Negative on return to base, she transmitted. Better positioned to engage hostiles from current location. Vector, can you coordinate fire support? Understood, the Thakari warrior replied. I have visual on 3 raiders approaching the eastern perimeter. Engaging now. His energy weapon lit up the storm with brilliant flashes as he opened fire on real enemies. The raiders scattered and returned fire with weapons that cut through the sand like deadly lightning. Hana found a shooting position with clear sight lines to the main raider group. 5 enemies moved in tactical formation toward the colony's power station. If they succeeded in cutting the power, The defensive systems would fail completely. She settled into firing position and controlled her breathing despite the storm raging around her. The raiders were 600 meters away and moving fast through cover. Difficult shots under perfect conditions and nearly impossible in a sandstorm. But she had made impossible shots before when everything depended on her accuracy. The first raider fell to a bullet through the chest before his companions even realized they were under attack. The second died as he turned to locate the shooter. The third made it 3 steps before joining his friends in the sand. The remaining 2 raiders took cover and began scanning for the sniper position. Their advanced sensors cut through the storm but could not pinpoint her location among the crystal formations. "Outstanding shooting," Vektar called over the radio. "The eastern group is neutralized. Moving to support your position." "Negative," Hana replied as she relocated to a new firing position. "More contacts approaching from multiple directions. We need to coordinate our fields of fire." The real battle for the colony was just beginning. The competition had become a fight for survival, where only the most accurate shooters would determine who lived and who died, and the storm's fury, 2 warriors from different worlds worked together against a common enemy. The desert would test more than their marksmanship before the day was over. The main Kethmori assault force emerged from the sandstorm like demons rising from the depths of hell. Dozens of raiders in black armor advanced on the colony from 3 directions, while the storm provided perfect cover for their approach. Hana watched them through her scope and counted at least 40 enemies with military-grade weapons. "Full-scale attack confirmed," she transmitted to the colony command center. "Main force advancing from north, northeast, and northwest positions. They have heavy weapons and coordinated tactics." Park Gino's voice crackled through the radio interference. "Defensive positions are manned, but we need accurate fire support. Can you provide overwatch from your current position?" Hana looked around at the crystal formation surrounding her shooting position. The elevated terrain gave her clear sight lines to multiple approach routes, but also made her visible to enemy fire. Perfect position for a sniper who never missed, but also the most dangerous place to be. "Affirmative." Moving to colony's highest observation point for maximum coverage. She began climbing toward the tallest crystal spire, while keeping one eye on the advancing raiders. The structure rose nearly 200 meters above the desert floor, and would give her commanding views of the entire battlefield. It would also make her the primary target for every enemy sniper. Vektar's energy weapon lit up the storm from the eastern perimeter as he engaged a squad of raiders trying to flank the main defenses. His purple energy beams cut through the swirling sand like deadly lightning bolts. 3 raiders fell before the others found cover behind rock formations. "Eastern approach is contained, but they have snipers with long-range weapons," Vektar reported. "I count at least 6 shooters with energy rifles positioned in the outer rocks." Kim Mira's voice joined the radio frequency from the colony's technical center. "Power grid is holding, but they damaged 2 backup generators. If they hit the main reactor, we lose all defensive systems." Hana reached the top of the crystal spire and set up her rifle on a stable shooting platform. The storm raged around her, but the height gave her vision above most of the swirling sand. Through her scope, she could see the entire battle developing like a deadly chess game. The Kethmori were advancing in 3 coordinated columns with supporting fire from hidden sniper positions. Their black armor was designed for desert warfare and included personal shields that deflected most energy weapons. Professional soldiers who had done this many times before. "Target-rich environment," Hana muttered as she acquired her first priority target. The enemy commander stood behind a crystal formation, directing his troops through hand signals. Taking him out would disrupt their coordination and buy time for the colony's defenses to organize properly. Range was 800 meters through shifting sand and wind. She controlled her breathing and felt the storm's rhythm through the crystal spire. The structure swayed slightly in the wind, but her body compensated automatically. Years of shooting in difficult conditions had taught her to become one with her environment. The shot rang out across the desert like thunder. The enemy commander spun and fell as the bullet found its mark through the storm. His troops immediately began looking for the sniper position, but the sound echoed off crystal formations and gave no clear direction. "Command target eliminated," she reported. "Enemy coordination disrupted." But the raiders were too professional to be stopped by losing one leader. A new commander quickly took charge and the advance continued with barely a pause. They had planned for casualties and adapted their tactics accordingly. Choi Doyen's voice came through the radio from the mining complex. They are trying to reach the equipment yard where we store the explosives. If they get those charges, they can blow through our defensive walls. Hana swung her rifle toward the equipment yard and saw a squad of 6 raiders moving fast toward the storage buildings. They had shaped charges of their own but wanted the mining explosives to guarantee success. She had to stop them before they reached their objective. The range was over 1 kilometer and the targets were moving through a maze of industrial equipment. No clear shots and too much cover for conventional sniping. She would have to get creative with her bullet paths. The first shot ricocheted off a metal beam and caught the lead raider in the side. He stumbled but kept moving while his squad mates scattered for better cover. They knew they were being hunted by an exceptional marksman. Hana's second shot used 3 separate ricochets to find a target hiding behind a concrete barrier. The bullet bounced between steel pipes and metal plates before finding flesh. Another raider down but 4 still moving toward the explosives. Impossible shooting, Zalneth's voice said with amazement. She is using the industrial complex like a weapon system. The remaining raiders reached the storage building but found Kim Mira had been busy. The young engineer had rigged the explosives with motion sensors that would detonate if moved incorrectly. The first raider to touch a charge disappeared in a massive explosion that took out half the building. Engineering solutions work too, Kim Mira said with grim satisfaction. Meanwhile, Vektar was fighting a running battle with enemy snipers on the eastern perimeter. His energy weapon had superior range, but the Kethmori shooters used coordinated fire to keep him pinned down. Every time he engaged one target, the others would bracket his position with deadly accurate shots. "I need support on the eastern flank," he transmitted. 6 snipers with overlapping fields of fire. Cannot advance without taking casualties. Hana studied the eastern positions through her scope and saw the tactical problem immediately. The enemy snipers had positioned themselves perfectly to provide mutual support. Taking them out would require simultaneous shots or they would simply relocate. "I have a solution," she replied. "Give me 30 seconds, then advance on my signal." She loaded 6 rounds into her rifle's magazine and calculated the shot sequence carefully. All 6 targets had to be eliminated within 10 seconds or the survivors would escape. The range varied from 600 to 900 meters through storm conditions. The crystal spire swayed in the wind, but she used the movement to help acquire each target in sequence. Deep breath in, first shot, work the bolt, second shot, work the bolt, third shot. Her hands moved like machine parts as muscle memory took over. 6 shots in 8 seconds. 6 enemy snipers eliminated before they could react or relocate. The eastern perimeter suddenly fell silent as Vektar advanced unopposed through positions that moments before had been death traps. "Outstanding marksmanship," the Thakari warrior called out. "Eastern approach is secure," but the main assault was still coming. Grixtel himself appeared at the head of 20 raiders advancing directly toward the colony's main gate. The Kethmori commander wore advanced armor that shimmered with energy shields and carried a weapon that glowed with barely contained power. "Priority target identified," Hana transmitted. "Enemy leader at main gate with heavy escort." She aimed at Grixtel, but his personal shields deflected her first shot harmlessly. The bullet struck the energy barrier and ricocheted away without effect. Advanced technology that made conventional sniping useless. "Shields are too strong," she reported. "Need alternative approach." Park Gino's voice crackled with desperation. "Main gate defenses are failing. They have breaching charges and will be through in minutes." Hana studied the situation and realized conventional tactics would not work. Grixtel's shields could stop kinetic rounds, but they had to be powered by something. Find the power source and the shields would fail. Through her scope, she could see the energy conduits running from his backpack to the shield generators. The conduits were small targets, barely larger than her bullets, but they were outside the shield perimeter. Hit the right spot and the entire system would overload. Range was 600 meters through a sandstorm to a target the size of a pencil. Miss by even a centimeter and the shot would have no effect. The most difficult shot of her entire career, with the colony's survival depending on her accuracy. She steadied her rifle against the crystal platform and became one with the storm. Wind speed, bullet drop, target movement, and atmospheric pressure all factored into the final calculation. Only one chance to get it right. The shot left her rifle and flew through the chaos toward its impossible target. 2 seconds later, Grixtel's shield sparked and failed as the energy conduit severed. He stood exposed and vulnerable for the first time since the battle began. Her second shot took him center mass and sent him crashing to the desert sand. The most feared raider commander in the sector was down and his forces began to waver without his leadership. Enemy commander eliminated, Hana reported as the Keth Mori assault began to collapse. The remaining raiders retreated into the storm carrying their wounded and leaving their dead behind. The battle was over, but the cost had been high. Several colonists and Thakari warriors would not see another sunrise. Hana climbed down from the crystal spire as the sandstorm began to clear. Below her, the colony still stood defiant against the desert. She had never missed her mark when it truly mattered. The real test was over. Now came the time for healing and building something better from the ashes of war.